It's, of course, two dominant seventh chords on top of each other, a half step apart, with, again, a melody that is not at all typical of what you call the Viennese school of non-tonal melodies. Those are like non-memorable. That's all I can say about them. They're just not memorable. This is all memorable. This. It sounds like it grabs resonance with almost any level of human or musical understanding. Continuing chords from Stravinsky. This is a chord. It's just a ninth chord. And again, a melody which is folk-like. And just repeats the same 6 or 7 notes over and over again. Again, it's easy to remember it, even if you don't grab the notes that are the accompaniment notes. And I'm at this point going to add some other notes. Supposing Stravinsky wrote something else. We have this. And he wrote, let's change it to, or let's change it to. It doesn't particularly matter what the accompaniment chords are. That's the interesting part of this. Now, given that, let's find a classical tune which is completely harmonic and then add the so-called wrong notes that Stravinsky found. So, be a tune in the period of Beethoven, right? Okay, now let's add the other notes. You see, you still have the tune in mind. And to some extent, you can argue about the other notes, but there are some wrong notes that are wronger than others. And there are some wrong notes that sound right. And that is what Stravinsky discovered, the wrong notes which are actually the right wrong notes. So we'll continue with this piece of his. This is harmonizing major and minor thirds together. So this is a very famous section. So that is simply taking a harmonization and harmonizing it this way. Usually with major sevenths, often with just major and minor thirds. So, and harmonizing. Major thirds against minor thirds. It's again a flavor that Stravinsky found. There's so much that he had to offer as far as what could come after it. It's pathetic that people have not taken all of this possibility. Another one is ostinato basses, like a passacaglia. Just the same things. It doesn't matter what you put on top of it. Still has that kind of power that having an ostinato bass with wrong dissonances against it has. It just does have that kind of power, and of course it's in his piece. Another one that he discovered was in minor chords having the upper half step or lower half step against it. So now I'll do the upper. So he found in the second part of the right spring that if you harmonized in that way, that it had another kind of exotic power. I use the term exotic because this is all from folk music tradition. And he got all of these folk tunes, or most of them, from Stravinsky's book of 100 folk tunes. Very hard to find in public libraries now. I think it's only in Russian. But anyway, that's where all of this comes from. So Stravinsky offered all of these futural possibilities. And another one is single chord. Same kind of opening material that starts the piece, where it is based on chords which are very similar in tonality or the same, but provide a rhythmic background. And it's like this. It's the same idea. And notice another thing, that the chords are to some extent interchangeable. If you do, and I change the pitches to the fourth, I don't even know which ones are the right ones. They all sound about equal, but that's a very interesting thing to come about. Now, as you move into more problematic music, which is the Viennese school, you end up with serial atonality, which I don't think to this day has found a real instrumental audience. And let me play a sample here. This is from the end of Berg's Violin Concerto. The section that most grabs me is the ending, this. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Because he goes back to tonality. He's doing this, which Stravinsky does, and which, let me see if Tchaikovsky does. It's tritone jumping from one tritone to the other. So I don't think you can escape tonality with serial atonality or with the next step, which is truly excruciating. This is where everything is prepared. Every aspect of the piece is prepared. The rows are prepared for the notes. The pitches, in other words, all A's will occur there or there, whatever. The rhythms are all from a series of rhythms like, half note, 4/16, etc. And it's usually in one level. The dynamics are also prepared in advance. And I used to teach a class in this at Juilliard. Here's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like. It's totally prepared music. And the person who invented that was Olivier Messiaen in the 40s, late 40s. He wrote a series of piano etudes, and one is called Mots de valeur et d'intensité. So this is how I think music has reached from about 1912 until pretty much the present time, of not one single aesthetic, the public basically rejecting instrumental non-tonal music, but finding it acceptable in a few other ways. In movies, mystification, anxiety, it shows it very, very well. The shark's coming, this. Shark's coming. Or mystification. Not knowing what to do. What should I do? And in stage works where you don't really worry about remembering the melody. Of course, Berg's Wozzeck is the best example of that. Exciting stage work which has a kind of background which people don't remember much about the music, but it went very well with the stage stuff.